Welcome back to ASD, A New Perspective, the podcast show where we help you understand what is going on in the mind of your child. And we encourage you that growth for your child is possible. I'm Kat Lee, and in this week's podcast, so many times we hear that autism is about social relationships and how the children relate to others. But Dr. Gutstein says it's also about how the children relate to the self.
So our job is to say, look, we want to see that we're building those foundations. We're building the mental resources, the knowledge, the mental tools, the habits, and the motivations, the intrinsic motivations, really important. We keep building those, and we build those in a balanced way together, and we build them in a step-by-step way. And we teach that child to gradually take ownership of them, of the mental tools, learn how to use them gradually in more difficult, more challenging real-world environments, and take responsibility for them. But that's this gradual process. And then we add more complexity and more integration, and et cetera, and more components. And we very carefully nurture the development of each child's mind and self and brain, because they're all together. They're developing. The mind, the self, and the brain are all developing together. They influence each other. There's no separation between the three. They have to be seen as one organism, right? Mind, self, and brain. They're the same thing, just on different levels. Just like self-development and social development are the same thing, just looking at it from different perspectives. There's a relationship with oneself, there's a relationship with oneself and others. The relationship with others defines who you are. The relationship with who you are defines how you manage relationships with others. There's no, you can't take those things apart and treat them separately. You can't teach them discreetly. You have to put them together, which is another piece of this puzzle, another piece of this model that I hope we can emphasize more.
Well, and this is something that you've impacted me so much on, that when we talk about autism, it's about a lot of the time talked about social skills and how we're relating and theory of mind with other people and other people's perspective. But you have talked so much about our relationship with ourselves being key, but undiscussed, the self.
Oh,
and
how
it's the key. You can't have with others without having with yourself.
Yeah, you can't. The opposite people would argue the opposite way, and you can't have a self without relationships with others. But where you compare yourself to others, you differentiate yourself from others, you identify with others, right? You learn how to use your mind. So they're interconnected. They're parts of a larger process. And yeah, you don't want to take that apart and just talk about the idea of just talking about social skills without self skills, or self skills. The idea of talking about skills, even, if you think about it, is a scary thought. We have to build not behavioral skills. We have to build mental tools, and we have to learn. And those are different than just scripted things and discrete behaviors. Those are ways of thinking and ways of making judgments, and ways of looking at an experience and being able to extract something meaningful from yourself. They're ways of trying to prepare by considering the future and looking at multiple possible futures, by looking at being able to handle multiple points of view and wanting them. But it's not just being able to do those things, it's wanting to do those things. The intrinsic motivation, the desire to challenge yourself, to move into more complex dynamic environments where you need to do those things. You see, if you keep yourself in, if you avoid any kind of expansion of your world, if you hide out in your sort of closet, if you will, or your room, you don't have to develop any of those mental tools. You don't have to learn to do all those hard things. So the reason you develop those mental tools, children develop, is that they have this incredible desire to expand into more challenging areas of the world, right? To do more on their own, to expand interpersonally, to expand environmentally, to expand and understand more and try to get more meaning and make sense of more things, which means they're going to have more frustration, which means they're going to have more confusion, and uncertainty and things that are not going to make sense for a while, right? But they have an enormous drive to challenge themselves in that way. And if you don't build that drive, if you don't make sure that motivation's in place, there's no reason you can't teach the skills. I mean, the skills fade away. They have no value. They have no functionality. Along with that, you develop the habits of doing that. So, for example, if you can't teach just the skill of developing what we call an experience sample, having an experience and then constructing a sample so that you can save it for later. If you don't develop the habit of routinely reviewing what you've been, what's going on in your day, if you're not stopping to review, if you're not stopping to represent it, if you don't develop that habit of routinely doing that, then you can't teach the skill. I mean, the skill has no value. It has no place. It won't be performed. So the habits have to be there. The motivations have to be there. The mental tools of how to use your mind. The valuation of your mind, by the way, is very important. One of the foundations is the awareness of mind, of feelings, the importance of feelings and using feelings as information, but also of the fact that I have ideas, that I think through things, that I make judgments, that those are things going on in my mind. Learning to value your mind and others' minds is much more important than what we call theory of mind skills or all those skills, because it's what drives that. The problem we find with autism is not the lack of ability to teach a theory of mind skill. It's the motivation, it's the understanding, the motivation, the intense desire to know minds, to know my own mind, to realize that that's a key to unlocking more understanding of the world and more agency, more ability to succeed in the world. Understanding my mind, myself, understanding who I am, understanding who others are, understanding what my feelings tell me, right? All of those things, developing knowledge about myself and others, those are the tools that allow us to be successful in the world.
And thanks for joining us for ASD, A New Perspective, the podcast show where we help you understand what is going on in the mind of your child. And we encourage you that growth for your child is possible. I'm Kat Lee. See you next time.